Among the many alien species humanity had imagined, these were not the ones they had prepared for. The Zariath, cold and calculating, spoke little and acted swiftly. Their technology was leagues ahead of anything on Earth, but their true terror lay not in machines or weaponry, but in what they unleashed upon their victims. The creatures, ruthless, towering beasts, descended from the warships like living weapons. They were the Zariath's secret, their unstoppable biological machines of war. Each one was different, grotesque in its design, some with armored hides, others with razor-sharp limbs that sliced through steel and stone with ease. Their glowing eyes burned with primal rage, and their roars shook the earth, sending ripples of fear through every human heart. Major Evelyn Rourke stood atop the remains of a destroyed building, staring at the chaos unfolding in the city below. She had seen combat in some of the harshest environments on Earth, but nothing had prepared her for this. The monsters, unlike any earthly creature, moved with brutal efficiency, destroying everything in their path. Tanks and helicopters engaged the beasts, but even the most advanced military technology crumbled under their relentless assault. Rourke tightened her grip on the binoculars, scanning the battlefield for any sign of hope. There was none. Every moment the beasts continued their rampage, Earth's defenses fell apart, and with each city that succumbed, the Zariath drew closer to total domination. The aliens watched from their floating citadels, confident in their victory, their beady eyes flickering with malicious satisfaction. Behind Rourke, her second-in-command, Captain Jason Lee approached, his face pale with disbelief. "They're unstoppable, Major. Nothing we throw at them even slows them down." Rourke glanced over her shoulder, her jaw clenched. Then we're throwing the wrong things. Her mind raced, searching for a solution, any solution. She had faced impossible odds before, but this was different. The beasts weren't just physical threats. They were the embodiment of terror, and terror had a way of paralyzing even the best of soldiers. Below, a massive beast tore through a row of tanks as if they were made of paper. Its claws, glistening with an iridescent sheen, ripped apart the steel hulls with terrifying ease. Behind it, smaller creatures darted forward, their nimble forms moving too quickly for any weapon to lock onto. Human screams filled the air as soldiers and civilians alike were caught in the crossfire. "Get the evac teams ready," Rourke ordered, her voice steady despite the chaos. "We're pulling out of the city." Lee blinked in surprise. "We're retreating." "No," Rourke said, her eyes narrowing as she focused on the largest of the beasts, a towering creature covered in scales that shimmered in the dull light. "We're regrouping. We need to find a way to stop these things, and it's not going to happen with brute force." As the evacuation began, Rourke's thoughts turned inward. She had always believed that humanity could face any threat as long as they had enough time to prepare. But the Zariath had come too quickly, their beasts too devastating. Still, something about the creatures nagged at her. They weren't mindless destroyers. There was a pattern to their movements, a coordination that suggested they weren't simply following orders. They were intelligent. She turned to Lee. "Get me all the intel we have on these creatures. I want to know everything. Their biology, their behavior, weaknesses, if they even have any." Lee nodded and hurried away, leaving Rourke alone with her thoughts. She watched the beast from her vantage point, her mind working furiously to piece together a plan. The Zariath had made one fatal mistake. They had underestimated humanity. They thought Earth would crumble beneath their monsters, that fear would paralyze the population. But they didn't understand human resilience. Humans didn't give up, they adapted. The ground beneath her shook violently as another explosion rocked the city. But Rourke stood firm. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. For every monstrous threat, there was a way to tame it. She didn't know how yet, but she was determined to find out. The beasts may have been the Zariath's trump card, but in Rourke's eyes, they were just animals. Dangerous, yes, but animals nonetheless. And animals could be controlled. The creatures roared, their terrifying cries reverberating through the city. But Rourke only heard a challenge. It was time for humanity, to show the Zariath what they were truly capable of. "Let them come," she muttered under her breath. "We've tamed worse." Far from the front lines of battle, in a quiet wildlife reserve outside the city, Sarah Morgan watched the chaos on the news with a furrowed brow. The world was falling apart, and no one seemed to know how to stop it. For the past 15 years, Sarah had worked as a head animal trainer, specializing in rehabilitating dangerous predators, lions, tigers, even rogue bears. She knew creatures of instinct, understood their primal motivations. And to her, these so-called ruthless beasts the aliens had unleashed looked more like animals than unstoppable monsters. The footage on the screen showed a colossal, reptilian creature tearing through buildings, its massive jaws snapping as if hunting prey. The military had no answer. Bullets and bombs only bounced off the creature's thick hide. Panic was spreading across the globe. But as Sarah observed the beast, something familiar stirred in her mind. She didn't see a weapon of war. She saw an animal acting out of fear or confusion. "These aliens," she muttered to herself, "they don't understand what they've unleashed." Outside, the reserve's resident Bengal tiger, Max, let out a low growl from his enclosure, pacing in circles. Sarah approached the fence and crouched down, staring into the animal's golden eyes. Max was a predator, one of nature's most fearsome creations, yet under Sarah's care, he had learned restraint. She had tamed his instincts, earning his trust through patience, understanding, and mutual respect. These alien beasts, she reasoned, couldn't be that different. Sarah's phone buzzed. It was a call from her brother, Ben, who was stationed with a local military unit. She answered, still watching Max pace. "Ben, what's going on out there?" "It's bad, Sarah. The city's overrun. We're getting ready to pull out completely. These things, there's no way to stop them." "Have you tried anything other than weapons?" she asked, her mind racing. "What do you mean?" "These aren't animals, Sarah. They're monsters." "They're animals, Ben. Watch the footage. They're acting on instinct. They're confused and scared, not just killing machines. You're fighting them with the wrong tools." There was a pause on the line. "Even if you're right, how do we stop them without weapons? We don't have time to figure this out." Sarah clenched her jaw, a plan forming in her mind. "I'm coming to you. I need to see one of these creatures up close." "Sarah, no. It's too dangerous. I've been in cages with predators my whole life, Ben. Trust me. I know what I'm doing." Within hours, Sarah was at the military base just outside the city, where a massive beast lay immobilized in a makeshift containment area. It had been subdued with tranquilizers, its colossal body heaving with slow, steady breaths. Its scales shimmered under the floodlights, its alien form both terrifying and beautiful. Ben stood beside her, his face a mixture of disbelief and concern. "This is insane, Sarah. What are you hoping to find?" Sarah stepped closer to the beast, her eyes scanning its features: thick, armored skin, powerful limbs, and eyes that twitched beneath its closed lids. The creature, though dangerous, wasn't mindless. She had seen enough wild animals in distress to recognize the signs. Erratic breathing, tense muscles, the way its claws twitched against the dirt. "They're not here to destroy us," she murmured. "They're scared. These aliens. They probably control them somehow, but without direction, they're just reacting." Ben frowned. "So, what? You're going to talk to it? Train it?" "I don't know yet," Sarah admitted, "but I'm going to try. If I can get close enough while it's still sedated, I can figure out what triggers it, what calms it." She approached the creature slowly, cautiously, her years of experience kicking in. She moved as she would around any dangerous predator, calm, measured, and without fear. She reached out a hand, hovering it just above the creature's hide. For a moment, nothing happened. But then she felt a faint tremor beneath her palm, as if the beast recognized her presence. "See," she said softly, glancing at Ben. "It's just an animal. It can be reached." Before Ben could respond, the creature's eyes flicked open, two glowing orbs of alien intelligence. Its body tense, but Sarah didn't flinch. She met its gaze, holding her ground, heart pounding in her chest. The beast snarled softly, testing the limits of its restraint, but Sarah remained still, her hand resting gently against its skin. "It's okay," she whispered. "You're not alone." To Ben's shock, the creature relaxed, its head lowering slightly as the tension drained from its massive form. Sarah took a step back, exhaling in relief. She turned to Ben with a determined look in her eyes. "These things can be controlled, Ben. They can be tamed. If we can figure out how to communicate with them, we might just stand a chance." Ben stared at her, still processing what he had just witnessed. "You really think this is the answer?" Sarah nodded, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. "If we can turn their own beasts against them, it might be the only answer we have." The sound of battle echoed through the city's ruins, but for the first time in days, the tides were shifting. Sarah stood at the front of a newly formed human resistance, surrounded by the very creatures that had once threatened to destroy Earth. Behind her, the massive form of the alien beast she had tamed followed her command, a towering shadow of scales and muscle. She had given the creature a name, Titan, and now it responded to her as if they were bonded by something primal, something the Zariath had never understood. Across the battlefield, the alien invaders had begun to lose their edge. The ruthless beasts they had once unleashed with confidence were no longer their unstoppable force. Under Sarah's guidance, the resistance had spread her methods, calm, control, and behavioral understanding throughout the world. Teams of zookeepers, animal trainers, and military experts had come together, using tranquilizers, careful observation, and patience to tame the beasts. One by one, the monsters had stopped fighting against humanity. Now, they fought for it. "Ready, Titan?" Sarah whispered, placing her hand against the creature's side. It snorted in response, its glowing eyes fixed on the enemy ahead. This was no longer a battle of survival. It was a test of who could adapt faster. And humans, Sarah knew, were masters of adaptation. To her right, Major Rourke, now one of the leaders of the global defense, gave her a sharp nod. "This is it. If we can push them back here, we can turn this war around." Her voice was tense, but beneath it, Sarah sensed a rising confidence, something no one had dared to feel since the invasion began. The Zariath, watching from their towering ships, seemed bewildered. Their greatest weapon, creatures designed to be uncontrollable forces of nature, had been neutralized. Worse, those creatures were now fighting on humanity's side. The aliens hadn't counted on this. They had underestimated humans' ability to understand, adapt, and tame even the most dangerous of foes. "Let's show them what we're made of," Sarah said, her voice low but filled with determination. She raised her arm, and Titan surged forward with a deafening roar, leading the charge. The battle was chaos, but it was a chaos that the resistance now controlled. Beast after beast, once rampaging through the city, now followed the guidance of their human handlers. Some fought side by side with human soldiers, using their immense strength to tear through the Zariath war machines. Others acted as shields, blocking enemy fire with their thick hides. Sarah moved through the battlefield with precision, Titan clearing a path before her. The alien soldiers, once so confident in their superiority, were falling back, their forces crumbling under the combined might of humanity and their reclaimed beasts. She could see the panic in the Zariath's retreat, their once steady advance turning into disarray. As Sarah reached the front lines, she caught sight of a massive Zariath commander directing its forces from a raised platform. Its elongated limbs and multi-eyed head turned sharply as it noticed her approach. Behind the commander, a new beast, larger and more terrifying than any they had seen before, stood waiting, its jaws snapping impatiently. "That one's different," Major Rourke muttered beside her, eyeing the creature with concern. "We don't have time to tame it." Sarah shook her head, her jaw set. "We don't need to." Before anyone could stop her, she sprinted toward the beast, weaving through the chaos of battle. Titan followed, roaring as they neared the Zariath commander. The alien tried to order its new beast to attack, but something was wrong. The creature hesitated, its fierce eyes shifting between the alien leader and Sarah. It could sense something, perhaps her calm, her lack of fear. The Zariath didn't understand, but Sarah did. This wasn't just a war of strength. It was a war of willpower and connection. As Sarah closed the distance, she reached out with her voice, steady and sure. "Easy now," she whispered, her words barely audible over the noise of battle. "You're not here to fight us. You're here to fight them." For a tense moment, the new beast froze, caught between instinct and Sarah's calm presence. Then, with a snarl, it turned, not toward her, but toward its own Zariath commander. The alien's shriek of disbelief was drowned out by the sound of the creature's jaws snapping shut, ending its control once and for all. The tide had turned. The Zariath, without their beasts, were nothing. The once terrifying creatures that had ravaged Earth were now humanity's greatest allies. Major Rourke, panting from the exertion of battle, approached Sarah, her eyes wide with awe. "I can't believe it worked." Sarah smiled, glancing at Titan, who stood tall beside her, a symbol of what humanity had achieved. "We just needed to understand them." Across the battlefield, the remaining Zariath forces were retreating, their ships pulling back into the sky as they realized their defeat. The beasts, once their greatest weapon, were now their downfall. As the dust settled and the last of the alien invaders fled, Sarah stood amidst the wreckage, feeling the weight of the victory settle over her. Humanity had faced annihilation and emerged not only alive but stronger, bonded with the very creatures meant to destroy them. "We did it," Ben said, arriving at her side, his face alight with the glow of victory. Sarah nodded, her gaze fixed on the horizon where the last of the alien ships disappeared. "We've tamed the beast, Ben. Now, let's rebuild the world." In the end, the Zariath had failed to understand the resilience of the human spirit, and that was their greatest mistake.